Hey everyone, welcome to the Canine Culture Podcast, where we talk about everything dog. Q&As with veterinarian professionals, rescue operators, everyday topics. We cover everything dog on this podcast. So make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and make sure you're following us on social media on both Instagram and Facebook. Thanks again for listening. Now here's that next episode. Hey everyone, welcome to the Canine Culture Podcast. This is your host, Brittany, and today we are going to do a little bit of an intro. We've added a fourth Pomeranian to the family. Yes, that is as crazy as you think it is. It's as crazy as it sounds. But we are now a family of 6. So my husband and I and 4 Pomeranians. So I've had a couple of questions. How did you get him? Were you looking for him? The short answer is it was an accident. And for anyone who hasn't been listening for a while, I kind of just introduce you to all of the Pomeranians, how we got them, just a little bit about them, because we do get quite a few questions about our personal dogs. So we'll start with Titan. Got Titan first. He is now 13 years old. He's a blue Pomeranian. Got him as a puppy, and you're going to see a theme here. All of our dogs have essentially been an accident. So for Titan, I went to a pet store. And I don't believe in going to these particular pet stores. Something prompted me to go that day. I thought, hey, maybe I'll get a bunny. I didn't need a bunny. I already had a Pomeranian at the time. So went to get this bunny for whatever reason, walked in, saw a Pomeranian in a cage and said, that's mine. At the time, my husband and I, which we had only been dating for a little over a year, we had this apartment off campus from Ohio State, could barely afford our rent. We could not afford to eat. And I see this Pomeranian, and she gives me the amount. And at the end of the day, we ended up getting a loan from the bank. It was our first major purchase together. And yes, we did get a loan to purchase Titan. He was a terrible puppy. I'm just going to be really honest about it. He destroyed absolutely everything. Shower curtains, plungers, shoes, dishes, cables, you name it, he destroyed it. As time progressed, he definitely got better. He was his best living in New York City. If you guys have heard any of those stories, he went to work every day in an office. He went to the CrossFit gym. He loved to jump on the boxes and hang out with the different members at the CrossFit gym. And now that he's 13, he is completely deaf. That's a new adventure for us, trying to navigate having a completely deaf dog, especially a dog that used to be able to hear, and his commands were verbal. So that's a little bit of a learning curve for us there. So that's Titan. Next one on the roster is Stony. She is 14. She'll be 15 in November of this year, so November of 2023. And we got her when she was 11 years old. So we got her from a rescue in Jacksonville, Florida, Papillon Pals. And I had seen Papillon Pals post these senior Pomeranians, and they were posting for a few months. And at first, I was still living in New York City, and I thought, well, I don't know. I don't think she'll adopt me. And then on a whim, decided to move back to Florida, contacted the rescue, told her I was interested, did the whole application, the whole 9, and ended up with this senior Pomeranian who had been the main mommy dog for a breeding operation. Long story short, they ended up being shut down. This breeder was no longer supposed to be breeding under the AKC. We know how that goes. There might not be a lot of oversight. And so essentially, my understanding is that the breeder basically stopped paying rent at her trailer. Landlord came in, found all of these dogs in cages in terrible conditions. The dogs were taken to a shelter, and they were busted out by Papillon Pals. So when we got Stony, she had never really been outside other than with the rescue, so she wasn't potty trained. She hadn't really been held that much. She had never really been played with. And so she's come quite a long way with us. She still doesn't love people, which, hey, I totally get that. Isn't that most of us? But she has adapted so well to being a part of our crew. Next on the list is Napoleon. So Napoleon is now 4 years old. We got him when he was 2 years old, and we got him from a rescue in New Orleans. And essentially, they had deemed him an aggressive dog. They had basically given him a bite label, if you will, or, essentially a bite record. And without delving into too many details here, he's actually the sweetest boy ever. He does have some behavioral issues that we are still working on. And it's our first reactive dog. So you don't understand training and working with and living with a reactive dog until you have one. And I would say he's gotten a lot better. I'm very grateful that he has progressed much more than I ever thought he would. And there's still so much more room to grow. So that's something we're, kind of a work in progress on. But he's been doing fantastic. Again, fits in perfectly. He's a wild child, kind of like Titan when Titan was a puppy. And so with that, we have our newest, his name is Odin. He is estimated to be 1. Papillon Pals was able to take him in. So again, Papillon Pals here in Jacksonville, Florida. If you guys haven't heard of them, they do amazing work here in Jacksonville. So Odin was dumped, and some workers basically saw him in a parking lot for several weeks. It took several weeks to catch him. He's very fast. He's very scared of people. And so once they captured him, he was able to go to Papillon Pals. She was able to take him, to the vet, to get him neutered, all of the things that you have to do before adopting a dog out. And then he ended up at our house. So it is the first time that I've had a puppy in a long time. Number one, you forget about potty training a puppy. Not only potty training a puppy, but a stray. And so their actions are a little bit different. They're just used to going whenever, wherever. And so even though they're a puppy, they have that experience of just going, wherever they're at. And he was just going wherever he could in that parking lot that he was dumped in. So that's been a little bit of a challenge. If you add that to the fact that he's very, very scared of people, it makes it somewhat difficult to train him. And so, just as you guys have heard me preach on here before, patience, patience, patience. So, one of the first things we did when we brought him home was we got him a little kennel and put his bed in there, his bed that he had from the rescue. And he just felt very safe. You could tell he felt very safe. He felt very secure when he was in there. And so that was kind of his home, if you will, his safe place he could go in the house. So, I never really thought of a crate being a safe place for a dog, but for some of the rescues, especially if they were strays or if they were abused, it's a great thing to have available to them. You don't always have to use the crate, but it is very helpful. Something else I kind of forgot about with puppies is the chewing. And I'm talking, chewing on everything. And like I said about Titan, that was 13 years ago. He chewed on everything. Odin is the same way. He will find anything and everything to chew on and to take it up a notch where he was, kind of finding his own food when he lived in a parking lot. He will go outside and eat leaves and rocks and sticks. So that's also been very interesting to navigate. And kind of with that, his hunger and his love for food. So we are going to get him a slow feeder because he can finish his dinner in 0.5 seconds. So a slow feeder bowl for him. We haven't done it yet. We wanted him to kind of get acclimated, to get used to us, to get used to the other dogs here. But that is one of the next steps that we kind of see for him is that slow feeder, just to make sure he's not getting an upset stomach or throwing up his dinner after he eats it. So that's kind of my little pack of 4 Pomeranians. Is 4 too many? I'm going to say no. It just kind of depends on your lifestyle. I'm very fortunate that I do work from home. My husband works from home half of the time. So that's really helpful. I don't think we would be able to support 4 dogs or be able to care for them the way we do if we didn't work from home. So I'm not saying 4 dogs is for everyone. Quite frankly, it's probably not for most people, but it works for us. And that's our cap. 4 dogs. I have found my maximum, and that's kind of where I'm capped at. So that's just a little bit about me and my Pomeranian crew. I would love to hear from some of you that have multiple dogs, especially if you've rescued them at different times. How did you integrate them into the pack? What are some challenges that you had to overcome? I'd love to hear about those. So, as always, if you ever have any topics you'd like to hear covered on the podcast, or if you'd like to be a guest, please email us at canineculturepodcast@gmail.com. Also, feel free to send us a message on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok. And then please make sure you share the podcast with your friends and family, Apple Podcast, and on Spotify. And I just appreciate all of you listening. Thank you so much for being supporters of the Canine Culture Podcast. And we'll talk to you guys next week. Thank you for tuning in to the Canine Culture Podcast. Please make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and make sure you're following us on social media. If you have any recommendations, any topics that you'd like to hear, if you know of any guests that would be good for the show, or if you yourself want to be a guest, please reach out to us. Send us an email at canineculturepodcast@gmail.com, or send us a direct message on social media. Thank you for listening, and please share this with any of your dog-loving friends.